So Man City won.
No fairy tales, not this season at least.
Before talking about Pep though, I want to ask you a question, which is that one of the things about soccer that I think makes it different, football, it makes it different from every other sport, is that we talked about this, I think, in our first time we spoke, is that the trophy's significance changes over time. Like there was a time where the FA Cup was very important. And
Yeah.
now no one cares about it really. I mean, like you care about it a little bit, but really you don't care about it, right? Like
The rest, yeah.
most teams start their backup keeper, even up until the final, right? People joke about Liverpool winning the domestic double. You know what I mean? It's like, no one really cares about that, right? And then there was a time where the World Cup was way more important than it is today. And you and I both are kind of World Cup, I would say pessimists, but like we just don't think it matters as much as the Champions League. My
Yeah.
question is, do you think that within 10 years, the League Cup is not going to matter as much? And here's why I think that. And this goes into the conversation about Manchester City, is that over the course of a season, just having more money gives you an insane advantage of winning the league. Because if you only have 12 really good A+ players, you need to rotate for the domestic schedule. You need to rotate for the international schedule because you probably have 6 or 7 starters. You need to rotate for the cups, for Champions League, for everything. And you just don't have the people to like have good enough people in every single game. The reason why Manchester City keeps on winning the Premier League is because they have 10 people on the bench that they paid $100 million for. And it's like, okay, well, Phil Foden's our number one. Now we have Jack Grealish, but Jack Grealish is still very good. And,
Yeah.
my question is, before we start shitting on Pep, which I want to do, like, do we think that, like, it's like, okay, Bayern Munich, you won another Bundesliga. Man City, you won another Premier League. I think we might get to a point where people just stop caring. Is my question. What do you think?
I think so. I think it's a twofold problem. I think the first is obviously the money. So obviously, back in it was a pretty competitive league throughout the decades and stuff. And every team has their period of dominance. Us in the early 60s, late 50s. Liverpool had their 70s, 80s, we 90s, noughties. Roman Abramovich came and Chelsea just obviously flipped the script because it was between United and Arsenal. That was that main rivalry. They kind of came in and kind of broke the model. Okay, we're just going to start doing, that same sort of Galactico shit that I guess Real Madrid did as well, but
Yeah,
every season and for the domestic league and for whatever.
yeah,
They're curbing the money issue with obviously FFP and now PSR, profit and sustainability rules. They're vetting the owners a lot more, which I wish they'd done with the Glazers back in
yeah.
2005. Under the current rules, the Glazers would not have been able to get the sale through to buy
Oh,
Man
really?
United based on
Cool.
the fact that they were going to leverage this much debt on the club just to be able to get the funding to buy the club, that would not have been allowed. So these rules would have been great back in 05 because I don't think anything else would have really stifled us the way it has. Even Ferguson leaving, if we had a good football structure, but obviously
Yeah,
everyone knows that. So the main thing is the money, which they are working on curbing. But the big thing, which people are talking about, and I don't think still gets enough credit or enough sort of acknowledgement, is the schedule. There's just too many fucking games.
yeah,
How can you care about the FA Cup when you know you've got Champions League, you've got fucking international friendlies that don't mean nothing, the League Cup, the
yeah,
Carabao Cup, then you've got Champions League, Europe. Come the summer now, we have the Euros, and if it's not the Euros or the World Cup, we have the stupid Nations League. Which what does that really do? Yeah, it's a
yeah,
trophy. It doesn't really mean anything. They need to start curbing the number of games, not just for player injury, but for just overall well-being of the tournaments as well. If you go back to English clubs were not originally in the Champions League.
yeah,
Manchester, and this is not just a fan, this is just true fact. So this might sound like I'm giving United big props, but Sir Matt Busby was the pioneer because he actually said to the English FA at the time, we need to be in this competition because it's the best of the best and it's where we need to be. We need to compete against the other European leagues to see where we're at and improve overall.
yeah,
And the big fear the FA had was like what we're describing today. It's going to diminish the FA Cup. It's going to diminish domestic league games. United actually got kicked out of the FA Cup that season when we first went into Europe. They
yeah.
banished us as punishment for competing in Europe.
But I mean,
So
I
yeah,
think the interesting thing about the Champions League, I mean, the European Cup at the time, is that like it really didn't matter that much. Like obviously everyone talks about Ajax, everyone talks about Italy, right? But like, or no, not Italy, AC Milan. But like, if you think about I make this point a lot. Like Maradona so like in 2001, like Maradona and Pele were voted the two best players of all time, right? Up until that point. And I still think that Maradona is number one, but that's a whole different conversation. But like Maradona and Pele had never won a Champions League. Obviously, Pele played in Brazil, so that's different. But like Maradona played in Europe for what 7 years, 8 years, never won a
Mhm.
Champions League, and it's like imagine if like someone was voted the best NBA player of all time and never won an NBA Finals. You know what I mean? Like it's the type of thing where it's like because of that, like the European Cup just didn't have. And I think getting to your point, and sorry to interrupt before you got your second one. I think we're in this weird period of flux right now. We're like we're like clawing to the old traditions, but we have this
Mhm.
new thing that clearly everyone cares about. So we're playing the motions of the FA Cup and the Carabao
Yeah.
Cup. And by the way, why? How fucking stupid is it of England to have two domestic cups when every other country has one? And it's like, okay, great, let's just make our players even more tired in the Champions League.
Yeah. I don't know the full story behind the Carabao Cup, the EFL Cup, regards to like inception or why it's still around.
Yeah,
Um, Off the top of my head, I think it would just be in terms of accessibility to like the smaller clubs to play the big clubs. But that's what the FA Cup does. FA Cup, every professional team has a shot of
I
playing
think
in it.
even
Obviously,
amateur teams do, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've had stories of like, back in the day, Havant and Waterlooville back in 2010 were playing Liverpool, and it was the fucking biggest game in their history. They're playing the mighty Liverpool. So that's
Yeah,
the beauty of the FA Cup. The Carabao Cup doesn't even allow that. I believe it's just teams up until League Two or League
yeah,
One. That's why they call it the League Cup. So non-professional, like non teams out of the not out of the football league don't even get shots. So for me personally, I selfishly would scrap the League Cup for the bigger teams at least.
I completely agree.
Make it down a couple pegs. Make it like only up to championship level, but include the teams just underneath League Two and League a bit further down the pyramid, so that at least they get that more of a payday. And
Yeah,
let like the top 10 of the Premier League just focus on FA Cup, Europe, the league itself. Whether they'll do that or not again is a different question. I'm sure the Carabao Cup organizers wouldn't be too happy.
yeah,
But for me, FA Cup is like the best of the rest. It's still there's still some magic in it. And again, I'm not just saying it because we're in the final next week, but there's always something about that cup. Like even though we had a lowly finish of eighth, winning the cup would still mean something and add to what's been a terrible season. Just the history of the FA Cup, something. I mean, that Liverpool final in '06 against West Ham is absolutely nuts.
yeah,
It's had these great stories behind it. The 99 gigs goal against Arsenal on the way to the treble.
yeah,
That changed the whole season when he did that solo run. So there's just too much history in the FA Cup for it to be scrapped. But like you said, we're stuck in this in between where it's like if you had the chance to go for the league or the Champions League, but the FA Cup was in the way, of course you would sacrifice it. But
yeah,
it's still relevant enough to be there. The one I would scrap would be the League Cup, and I think moving forward, hopefully they've scrapped. So we have something called FA Cup replays. So I'm not sure if
yeah.
you're aware. So if the first leg finishes on a tie, you replay it, which again is just another game now. It's insane. So they
Did they
finally scrapped.
scrap that until like the fifth round or something?
So they've done something recently. I believe this season onwards, they started scrapping it, whereby it was just one off. It's just because there's just not enough fixtures, especially with the World Cup in Qatar being in the winter at the time last year,
Yeah,
just congested. And teams are starting to focus it now. The start of the season, the number of injuries United and other clubs have had this year, it's no surprise. Everyone thought there'd be injuries like immediately after the World Cup, but these things stagger. So you're not going to see because I remember people coming out saying, "Oh my God, World Cup in the winter, it's going to be a disaster." Then they came out after and said, "Oh, it was perfect. No one got injured. The teams are still playing." You have to stagger it, give it an 18-month cycle, and then you'll see the full effects.
so
And
I know this perfectly well because of Liverpool. Because Liverpool, we're going for the quadruple, and people were saying we get injuries, and then we didn't get injuries, and I was the one complaining the entire season. Like I would love, I can't do it because we have so many chats in my group chat, but I would love to like go back in time and just like show it as proof. Like I was always just like, Klopp, what are you doing? Why are you playing Virgil van Dijk in this game? Why what like and then like he didn't get any injuries, and so people were like, "Oh, like you're a doomer." And then next year we had all these injuries, and people
yeah,
with injury, the thing that upsets me the most with injuries is that like okay, so there are like the freak people, like for example, like in American basketball, there's like Andrew Bynum, who just like can never get on the field. Greg Oden, but like most injuries you can control injuries with a club. You really
Yeah.
can. And like just playing people less, having less time, subbing people out. These are all things that stop injuries. And I actually, because we're talking last time about the zigs and zags, and maybe we might go back to defensive football.
Mhm.
Maybe the overbearingness of the schedule might push us in that direction because the Man City, Liverpool pressing type of offense and defense, like that causes injuries. Like you're playing all these games and you're playing the most physically intensive style. Like a
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho type team, I mean, obviously they're playing hard. I don't want to diminish what they're doing, but you leave refreshed. Like you can play a back to back, you're fine.
Yeah, a solid defensive performance, 2-0, 2-0 win, nothing too crazy, and just sort of managing. That was a big complaint of the Mourinho United when Solskjaer joined. Our running stats were some of the most abysmal in the league that year up until Solskjaer came in, and then he ran the players into the ground. We won like 9 games on the trot, and then the players started getting injured because they weren't used to the intensity.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming back to that as well, not to keep making it all about United, but as well as
Oh, me
rotation,
too.
managing the squad and rotation on the manager's part, facilities on the club's part. I know I'm even though I haven't seen them, I know for a fucking fact the United facilities must be trash for the number of injuries we have. Like
Yeah,
upgrade the fucking gym equipment, the rehab facilities, make it best in class, like Liverpool, Madrid, City have. Don't have a lot of injury. Obviously, Liverpool have had some injury crises, but that's down to Jordan Pickford thinking he's doing some sort of split karate kick on Van Dijk standing leg and getting away with it somehow, which is still insane to this day how he got
yeah,
away with it. But City don't have too many deadly injuries. Real Madrid, you guys, Arsenal had a bad record, but they're improving because we took their head of medical department. He's at us now, and clearly we're seeing the reaping the benefits of that with half the playing squad out. But it's down to the club to have the best facilities, and then down to the management and the team to sort of manage the players' workload accordingly. The third facet then being the schedule. Again, I just don't know. Like Champions League final, what on June 1st, I believe. What's that? June 1st now, mind you. Jude, as an England fan now, Jude Bellingham, June 1st, biggest game in his fucking career. Hopefully, he smashes it, does well.
and then
He
June
has
22nd, right?
June 7th is our
June
last
7th?
friendly. June 7th is a friendly against Iceland at Wembley, which I will be going to. And
Oh,
I believe
nice.
there's one before that as well. So there's two friendlies in a week after the Champions League final. I'm not expecting Jude to play 90 minutes in both or whatever, but just that workload of God forbid he takes a little niggle in the Champions League, which he's obviously going to be playing his heart out for.
Yeah,
Has the did we need to have two friendlies before that? Okay, if you're gonna have the two friendlies, play all the fringe players. Play the players that are maybe trying to get that starting spot. You're starting 11 going into a tournament, but
yeah,
work the other guys that haven't played too much in the Premier League clubs. You just want to boost them up ahead of the tournament. It's going to be in Germany in the summer. It's going to be hot. You want to make sure their legs are good to go. Rest the main starters and then kick on. But just the fact that there's two friendlies a week after the Champions League final, and then like you said, the following week the tournament starts. Then it's month
yeah.
long grind.
I
Let's
I
see.
remember what so I hadn't we were talking about FIFA the other day. So I hadn't played FIFA almost a year at this point, but I did play 5 games back in October. And basically I was in India and I met someone at a pub. He said he had a PlayStation. We played. By the way, he did this lie where he was like, "Oh, I don't play either," and I'm like, and then it's clear that he's playing pretty regularly. And I was like, dude, like I actually don't have an Xbox. I've been
Yeah.
traveling the world, you can tell. Anyway, putting aside that point. So I beat him our last game 4-0. And after the game, he was like, he was going through all the stats, right? He's like, oh, I've 78% possession. I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. I beat you. I'm like, well, no, you didn't beat me because the game is 4-0.
Typically.
And
Yeah.
he's just like, no, but like, look how many more shots I had. I'm like, it doesn't matter how many shots you have. You get
That makes it
the
look worse. That makes it
yeah,
look worse. If you
exactly.
have shots, why didn't you score one?
And so your statement about Man United reminded me of this. And by the way, like I have a friend who's a U fan who always brings this up, and I'm a huge fan when he does because I think it's correct. It's just like you had Mourinho, and obviously like he wasn't that successful at Man United, but like someone came in and was like, oh, these players aren't running a lot. That's why we're not winning. It's just like no, just increasing the stats doesn't make the team better. You know what I mean? Being like, oh, like we converted at 10%. So if we shoot 10 times as many, we're gonna score 10. It's like, no, that's not how football works. Like it just isn't.
Oh,
One good shot is better than 1,000 bad ones.
and the difference is because obviously Ten Hag's been complaining, and a lot of players have been complaining this season, oh, Ten Hag's making us run too much in training. There's a difference there. There's a difference between a coach who's not really elite level. I love Solskjaer, legend, not an elite level coach, coming in and saying, making the guys run, winning 9 games in the trot, and then the legs burning out towards the end of the season. And the difference between a coach that's won multiple titles, or Eredivisie, but still won multiple titles,
Yeah,
one kick away from the Champions League final in 2019 with a proper little youth team of Ajax, great
yeah,
players, having a season and a half, the players knowing the training regimen, knowing the style of football he wants to play, and then just not committing to working hard enough in training. These
yeah.
lazy, pampered pieces of shit that think they have the God-given right to wear the shirt have never respected it, wouldn't even be on the reserves in our glory days going back 10, 15 years. And it's just ridiculous. So yeah, I agree completely. Like there should be a thing of, work ethic and get the right thing, but you can't just come and say, all right, run more. The first two things he said, Solskjaer, bless him. The first thing was the wing backs are too low, too far behind, push them up. I actually agreed with that. That gave us a bit more width and spread out the play. It was a bit more the old Fergie style. But just the running up and down, the players were running to the ground. The first 9 games were great, and then we had a shit ton of injuries. Pogba didn't play the rest of that season, and we just started falling off. We went up the table pretty high, 9 games. We obviously beat PSG, that legendary Ollie's at the wheel.
Yeah,
Even I was like, give him a contract. Holy shit, what's happening? I have to be honest. I was like, Jesus Christ.
yeah,
But it then just drips off so quickly. And then that shows you the difference between coming in, having that little sort of quick turnaround, new manager, and then falling off, and then elite level coach trying to actually make change in a very rotten dressing room in a rotten club, and just not getting where he wants because these guys are useless.
that's why like I'm always like very bearish on stars, especially in football. Like I think one reason that like I've really like been drawn to it is because like a sport like baseball has just been solved. Like it's just like you just need a computer and it'll give you the right
Moneyball.
right. And like basketball and like American football are getting there, but like football, soccer football is really like an unsolvable game. And like people like think that these stars are gonna like do all these great things, and then you see what happens to
Chelsea.
United. They're just pampered, and it really is about heart. And that's one thing. Like I think I sent you that meme where it was like Pep versus Ancelotti, and Pep has all these tactics, and Ancelotti's just the power of friendship. Like it
Yeah.
really is just like having that camaraderie and people actually caring about the jersey that they're wearing matters so much. And like I think that's kind of the problem a little bit with Ten Hag is that he comes from Ajax where he's not dealing with stars. I mean, he's
Hmm.
dealing with people who are going to be stars, but he's not
Yeah.
dealing with stars. And now he has to deal with these stars in the dressing room, and he just doesn't have, you know, uh, the ability to really like work with
I
them. You know?
I think he's actually done it quite well. I think from his point of view, he's done it the only way he can. Sancho being the perfect example of like whereby he gave him the carrot initially, gave him those 3 months off. This is an 80+ million pound player,
Yeah,
middle of the season. I've never seen. He was like, go on holiday, just get out of here. No one's gonna bother you. People are asking questions in the press conference. Ten Hag's taking all the heat. He's like, I gave him the time off, just leave him be, let him get his head right. Came
yeah,
back, I think scored against Leicester towards the end of the season. So you're thinking, okay, it's working this season again at the beginning, just not. So now maybe you have to give him the stick. He's
yeah,
left him no choice. If the carrot's not working, if I can't, Jose did the same thing. If Mourinho couldn't, Ferguson, Brian Clough, all the greats had different ways of managing the players. If they couldn't, some had to put an arm around them. Fair enough. If that didn't work, you poke them, you prod them a little bit, you get that reaction out of them, and then you know how to. With some of these players, nothing's working. So it's like, what do you do at that point? You understand? Like it's like I
yeah.
can't. What else can you do? It has to come from within. I can only push you so far. And coming back to your Moneyball baseball analogy, no one's learned that more than Chelsea. Buying all, they just bought another youngster. They call him Messinho, Estavo or something like that from Brazil.
Yeah.
He's going to turn 18. I think he's going to do a year on loan there and then show up. Great, another big Brazilian prodigy. But I don't know what they're not learning. Like they can't just buy up all these youngsters and just think, okay, we're shit now, but in 8 years we're going to be the fucking Harlem Globetrotters, like the best team in the world, whatever. Like it doesn't work like you said. Football is not baseball. It's not everything can change in a year or two.
But also, like, this is one thing that a lot of clubs don't understand with the young players is that like you put young players in a bad environment and they're going to turn out bad.
Yep.
And this is one of my big knocks. Sorry, I'm talking about so much about American sports this time, but like one thing I hate so much in American sports is the draft.
Hmm.
Because what happens is for people who don't know in American sports, like the worst team gets the best player, and so on and so on, right? And what happens is so often is you put this young, incredible talent, but very impressionable, who still has a lot to learn in the
Mm.
most dysfunctional organization in the NBA or the NFL. And what happens? They self-combust, they implode. And the best examples of players are people who didn't go to the worst. So, for example, like Tim Duncan, who was like a Spurs player.
Yeah.
Literally the Spurs were, I think it was either the year before or the year before that. They were like number one in the West. And then their best player got injured. And so they were just like, okay, we're throwing the season. So like they were the worst team, but they weren't actually the
Yeah,
worst team.
I
And so
agree.
like they brought him in and he had a good environment. All this to say that like Chelsea has this weird, as you said, like a money ball strategy. Like, oh, let's go with these young talents. Like, no, you need people to nurture them. And by the way, the perfect example of this, I'm sorry to keep on hating on him, is Kylian Mbappe. Like, you put Kylian Mbappe around Neymar, and you're getting Neymar 2.0. And, again, like, I don't think he's going to be that successful in Madrid, because he's kind of a prima donna. We're going to see. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
proven wrong.
Famous
Uh,
last words. Let's see.
but this actually reminds me, I think we're talking about this about the Spurs. So they had Mourinho, they had Conte,
Yeah.
now they have Ange, and all three of them have just exploded about the higher ups. Are the
Yeah.
Spurs just like irreconcilable? Can they
Thing
be?
is, it's so there's a famous saying, it's called being Spursy, whereby you have, let's say, out of a 9 month season, you kill it the first six, and you're thinking, oh my god, we're flying high, and then inevitably something, whether it's whether it's an injury you can't help, or just something will just implode somewhere, and they'll just end up. I mean, they were supposed to be top four. They were fighting for the title up until about November, December, let's say, and then okay, let's say at top four. Now they finished fifth. Villa beat them to it. No
Yeah,
discredit to Villa. They had a great transfer window. They looked
great.
when the season started. I was worried about them because they signed some brilliant players there, and Unai Emery, he didn't have the best of time at Arsenal, but he's a proven winner in other places. So I think at a smaller club like Villa, with all due respect, with a bit less standards or pressures, he's just free to sort of go about his way.
Have I told you my theory about Unai Emery?
No,
Um,
what's that?
so he can only coach at clubs with the name Villa in it. So
Villarreal, Sevilla, Aston Villa. I never even thought of that. Holy shit! Yeah, wow.
literally, so I'm gonna pull this up just to make sure I'm not
I've
botching
not
any
heard that.
lines. So he was at Valencia, Spartak Moscow, and then he went to Sevilla. He did a
Yeah,
great job there. I think he
the
went
league.
2 Europas, and
Yeah,
then he went to PSG. He did an okay job. He didn't do a great
tough,
job.
tough job
Went
there. Yeah,
went to Arsenal, got booted
Villa,
after a season. And
Villarreal.
then to Villarreal, and then he had the yellow submarine that
Yeah,
completely demolished Juventus. I mean, he lost to Liverpool, but that was our quadruple season. Like, there's no dishonor in that. And then he's at Aston Villa. Whenever a team has Villa in the name, he does amazing.
yeah. It's interesting. Yeah,
If
I
it
never
doesn't
thought.
have Villa, he can't perform.
I'm actually surprised no one. I haven't heard that from anyone up until this point. Actually, that's interesting. Yeah,
This is
he's
the
a solid cut.
analysis you get with
Yeah.
me.
Oh, it's good. No, it's interesting. I normally pick up small things like this. Like I like seeing the little trends in the sport. This is something even I didn't pick up. But I mean, he's a solid manager. He's done well. But Spurs, it's just from the very top up or top down. Let's say Daniel Levy, Joe. I'll say Joe Lewis, the main manager, the guy that actually owns Tottenham, because Daniel Levy is obviously just running the club, but he doesn't own it.
Didn't
It's
he get arrested?
there was a scandal. There was a not money laundering, not filing all his taxes or something like that. There was some issue a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but with Spurs, it's always just been like, I mean, for me, the biggest example, okay, it's only the Carabao Cup. You haven't won anything since 2008. They sack Mourinho the week of the final. Like, all right, he's not having a great season. The players have turned. But if you want to give anyone one final, just a one-off final, give it to Joe. It doesn't make any sense. Why sack him and lose it? If they sacked him and won, all right, they're vindicated. They lost anyway. I think they lost 3-0 or something. Why not just at least give them that? And then they can say, okay, it was a complete failure. They've actually opened themselves up to criticism by giving that what if scenario. What if they'd kept him? What if they'd won it? Why not keep him? What's an extra week going to do? What are you going to change in a week against fucking Man City that you have to sack him. And I don't remember who. I think Ryan Mason took charge of the final.
Plus,
And
who is better in knockout competition than Jose Mourinho? Again, I know we are talking about this the other day, but like that Porto season, Inter Milan. I mean, he didn't really do that well with Real Madrid.
there's a list of managers when it comes. So for me, there's managers and there's but not exclusive, but there's managers and there's fucking tacticians. So if you look at tacticians, Rafa Benitez, Carlo Ancelotti.
I actually want what this is a perfect transition, by the way. So I'll finish that list, and then I'm going to interrupt you.
Jose Mourinho. I'd even say Unai Emery for one of finals when he was at Sevilla, Villarreal against United. How we didn't win that final, but for me, one of the most underrated tacticians, Rafa Benitez, because when he was in the Premier League, it wasn't easy. His Liverpool weren't high flying Liverpool; they were solid top four competitors, solid midfield, great attacking options. Pepe Reina was probably the best goalkeeper in the league for a number of years in that Benitez team.
Yeah.
But playing up against Benitez, it was usually 1-0, 2-0 wins at best. Tight, cagey affairs, very compact, very hard to play against. He was the only one that used to beat Jose back in the 2000s at that time. Fergie didn't have a great record.
And Jose hated him. And there's no higher praise than when Jose Mourinho hates you.
Peak Jose at peak Chelsea in that first run, and then Rafa's just beating him in the Carling Cup, Rafa's beating him in the FA Cup, Rafa's beating him in the Champions League. In the league, it's a draw, Chelsea nick it 1-0, but in the cup competition, he's always eliminating Chelsea. Yeah. So Rafa, it comes down to managers, tacticians. So when you look at that, I mean, that's where the difference lies.
Here's my theory about that I was going to interrupt you with. And this is the segue to my Pep hate, because Pep is known as a tactician. And my theory about that is that I think that Pep has this entire tactician, mad genius persona to cover up the fact that he's actually terrible at tactics. And here's my defense, right? So if you are a manager, right, and a terrible tactician, right, you will overperform in league play and underperform in knockout football. Right. And if you're a great tactician, you'll overperform a knockout because knockout is all about that one game, figuring out that the one is while league play is about an average. It's about showing up every single week, right? Yeah. And as we know, Pep Guardiola underperforms in knockouts and overperforms in league play. The guy is terrible at knockouts. I'm gonna bring it next week. There's a list of like the last 12 years of Champions Leagues where like every single year his team loses in the last like 6 or 7 minutes. And it's always just like terrible flame up, right? And now I'm going to start my Pep Guardiola hate, which is, first of all, I think some of these titles need to get forfeited because 115 violations is just way too much. Everton got the fucking boot for one violation.
8 points off one.
Exactly.
Insane.
That means that we need 1,000 points deducted for Manchester City. Like the fact that the EPL won't do this is scandalous. Look. I'm willing to accept this compromise, which is Pep coaches another year, and they agree to this behind the scenes. Like I'm fine with it. Pep coaches another year. He gets another title. He gets to leave on a high note, and then the year later, the EPL goes back and strip some of those titles away. If they do that, I'm completely fine with it. Because right now, we all know that there's an asterisk. What I don't want is 50 years from now, people to look back and say, Pep Guardiola is the greatest manager ever because of this, and this. It's like, no, like, as we talked about earlier, he just overspent. He had the deepest bench in the world while Liverpool was playing like a 17-year-old because we didn't have anybody else. He was playing, Jack Grealish in the same exact type of position, right? So now going through Pep's legacy, because I really fucking hate this guy now because I'm so mad about this, right? He inherited Barcelona. He didn't build that. He then went to Bayern Munich. He didn't build that. And he really kind of underperformed as a Bayern Munich manager. Like, if you actually like look at what he did, like it wasn't like anything special, right?
Yeah.
And then he went to Manchester City, which, by the way, like Manchester City was already built before he got there. Like Manchester City was already performing extremely well before Pep Guardiola arrived. And like, if you were to say, when did he arrive? 15?
17, summer of 16. 17 was his first season.
So summer of 16, right? If we were to sit down and say, look, Pep Guardiola is going to coach this team for 8 years, is going to have an unlimited budget, is going to get Erling Haaland, and we describe who he is and all this type of stuff. Like we just describe what happens. and we ask you how many Champions Leagues is he going to win, you'd be like, oh, 4, 5, easily.
Hmm.
One.
Yep.
I actually, I'll go so far to say I think that Pep Guardiola is a tier 2, tier 3 manager. I don't think he's top tier because
Ooh.
all of his accomplishments were just he got very lucky in his situations.
So it's difficult because it is. I mean, he has done some incredible things. Like I was off the top of my head today, I was just thinking, only team to win the domestic treble, Man City. Only team to win 4 in a row, Man City. And if they beat us in the FA Cup next week, only team to win back-to-back league and FA Cup
wait,
doubles.
wait, wait, uh, man, you won a treble.
No, we won. Yeah, we won third treble, but the domestic treble of Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Premier
Oh,
League
okay.
has all been done by Man City. Yeah, that's why we call it domestic treble,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, City last year have done the treble as well. So there's just these different records he's broken. I have to give credit where credit's due. When I look at Pep's career, I look at obviously that Barcelona team. We just about scraped past him in the semi-finals, the Champions League the year before they won it. So they
Yeah.
were up there, like you said. It was a good team, just managed poorly and got a few bad apples out, and the talent was there to come up. I look at that Messi Pep situation a bit like Belichick Brady at the Patriots. Who was it? Was it Belichick? Was it Brady? Obviously, Brady went then to the Tampa Bay Bucks, who I hate because they're owned by the Glazers as well. Proved he did it there. With Guardiola and Messi, at the time, obviously Messi won it in 2015 without Guardiola under Luis Enrique. So you're thinking, oh my God, it's the same thing. It's Messi, not Guardiola.
Although they did pay off the refs.
Oh yeah, well, that's another can of worms there. But they won the treble that year. I was actually in Barcelona when they beat Bilbao in their version of the FA Cup final, the Copa del Rey final. Great season. Pep comes to City. Obviously, like I said, underperforms at Bayern. I'll give that because Bayern. Obviously this year they didn't do it, but they win the league. That stupidly stacked squad. They win the league with
I
Pep.
think I looked it up. I think that since like 1995, they've won the league like 27 out of 30 times or something like
Yeah,
that. Like some
11. The last 11 in a row is just disgustingly insane. I've not seen a record like that. The one I saw before that, I think it was Juve or someone won like 8 in a row or something crazy like that back in the
yeah.
day, in like 90s and 2000s or whatever. But to go 11 years in a row, like I can't imagine being a Bundesliga fan just thinking, all right,
I do have
where are
to
we
say though, I think the Juve record is a little bit more impressive just because Serie A was like I mean like I know that like in the late 90s the balance of power started to shift to La Liga, but Serie A was still the number 2 league. While Bundesliga now I think is clearly the number 4 league. I know they got the 5th spot, but that's just bullshit. Like
who
everyone knows that EPL is number 1.
would rate Bundesliga as fourth at the moment?
I think it's pretty clear. Do you not agree?
I would say they're actually obviously taking this year out, for example. Actually, not including this year because obviously Leverkusen did well, but in terms of Bayern's general dominance, I would actually put Bundesliga top 3, maybe even top 2. Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, and then Serie A. French league, fifth, sixth. We'll call it the
Yeah,
Farmers
yeah,
League.
yeah.
They're not happy with that, but I
Yeah.
think Bundesliga in terms of style of play and maybe even to a degree of intensity, because a lot of German Bundesliga coaches have come to the Premier League now. I think it's the closest one to the league in terms of intensity and just style of play, directness. La Liga's always been a bit more flashy, a bit more showboat, a bit slower. Italian league similar, where it's a bit slower, a lot more defense, compact, not too much crazy attacking. Um,
So I mean like I do think that this year is kind of an aberration with Bayer Leverkusen, and I mean Dortmund got the lucky draw. Like again, like I was one who picked Dortmund, but like it was a lucky draw, right? But like let's say going before this year, right? Like what teams could you easily see in a Champions League final, right? Like so in the EPL, it's Man City, Liverpool, Man U, Chelsea,
I would
Tottenham.
say I would say 3. Chelsea, United. So Chelsea, City, Liverpool are the only realistic ones in the last 5 years. Champions League final. You go
Yeah.
to Bundesliga, you get
I,
Bayern
I
Munich.
mean, I mean,
Dortmund.
Man U, like I actually have to push back because I know that you're a Man U hater because you're a Man U fan, but like the thing about Man U, like yes, they're dysfunctional, but like they are a team kind of similar to PSG a little bit, although like less talented. Where like
Yeah,
at
definitely
any
less time.
moment, if they flip a switch, they could win the Champions League easily. Not easily, but they could be in contention, right? They have the talent. Versus like if you look at a team like Aston Villa, it's like, okay, maybe you'll win a Champions League, but like you don't actually have the firepower, like it'll be lucky. Versus like Man U, it's like if one day everything starts clicking. It's like, okay, this makes sense. Like they have Rashford, they have Fernandes, they have Anthony. Like they're a good squad.
Mm.
All this to say, like, okay, so EPL, let's say three or four teams. La
Yeah.
Liga, you have, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and you have to put
Like,
Atletico Madrid up
yeah,
there.
I would say they
Um,
great up there.
and then Italy, you have Juventus, Inter Milan, and then
Three
and then you always
AC.
have like one or two teams, either AC Milan, Napoli. Like another team is always like, even Lazio sometimes plays really well. Uh, versus Bundesliga, it's like Bayern Munich and then maybe Dortmund. So that's kind of why I put,
Right.
Bundesliga fourth, is because it's like,
On the competitive scale, then yeah, fair enough. I could see
yeah,
that. I could see the argument for that. But going back to the Pep barrage. So yeah,
yeah,
Pep.
sorry.
And also, so at Bayern Munich, definitely underachieved. I think he admits as well. I came here to win the Champions League. Obviously, didn't work out. When we go back to managers versus tacticians, Pep is a very good tactician, but what he seems to do is he almost overthinks, and I'll never understand.
Completely
It was
agree.
back to back. I want to say it was back to back seasons where it was, I believe in 2020, yeah, during the COVID season, they were playing, with all due respect, Leon in the quarterfinal, and it wasn't two legs. They scrapped the second leg. It was a one leg, all winner takes all semi-final one leg. Fine, they were 3 games away from winning it essentially. 2 games away
Yeah,
from the final, one three from winning the whole thing. You're playing Leon. It's the easiest draw in the quarterfinal stage. I couldn't believe Leon even got that far. You're like typical Man City. They get a great draw. Overthought it. Got his tactics wrong. Leon won 3-1. Didn't play a holding midfielder. The
I could.
following season makes it to the final. Plays that Chelsea team. That Chelsea team under Tuchel. And you're just thinking, I'm thinking, which of the two is he gonna play? Either Fernandinho or Rodri. It's a simple question. The whole day, all I was talking about with my friends is, oh, they're gonna win it. They're gonna win it. It's just a matter of who's gonna be that pivot, who's gonna be the CDM that's gonna be controlling, dictating, and screening the back four. Fernandinho or Rodri. Rodri was still very green. He's not the Rodri we see now. So I was thinking I would start Fernandinho,
And then
17th,
sub
18th
him in.
minutes, sub in Rodri for the fresh legs and just see the game out. He played neither.
Yeah.
He didn't play any of them. He played a 4-2-4. The same mistake United made in 2009 against his Barcelona side. Now we got handled in midfield. Who was man of the match that game? N'Golo fucking Conte. The
Yeah.
opposition's player in that position.
But
So he overdoes it with his tactics and he shoots himself in the foot. He should have easily won 3 or 4 Champions Leagues in this reign. Same as Ferguson. I don't think Ferguson was a bad tactician. I've thought about this. First, I thought maybe he was a poor tactician because we killed the league. We should have won more Champions League. Some of them games that we played by Leverkusen in 2002. We should have won that semi-final. I don't know how Porto, we threw it away as well. I think with Ferguson, it was more stubbornness to play a certain way. He was like, I'm not going to play that smart European defensive style. We play one way. We're Man United. We attack. It was
but
to our detriment in the end, but yeah.
by the way, I do respect that to a degree. I mean, that is Klopp's problem, is that he will not change at all. But there is something to respect. Be like, no, we're playing our way. You would, but so I was pulling this up just because I wanted to make sure that I was correct about who it was. I remember, I think it was, I forgot who was talking about this. It might have been Henri was saying this, that like one of the big problems with Pep, and I completely agree that like I think the reason why Pep is not a good tactician is because he overcomplicates things. I completely agree that that's it. Like he would be a good tactician if he just chilled a little bit. And I remember like someone was talking about the 3-1 Real Madrid Man City match from 2 years ago. And when Karim Benzema scored that second goal, like you saw Laporte, it was Laporte, right? Let me check. Yeah, Laporte. He just froze up. And I think it was Henri who said that like the problem with Pep is that he gives you such a blueprint and a game plan that you have to stick to, that like if something unexpected happens, you have no idea how to react to it. And it's not even you, it's because everybody needs to be synchronized, right? It's like, okay, hold on, pause the game, let me pull out my binder, go to page 874, paragraph 3. Oh, I have to stand over here. And it's like, versus you take like an enchilada team where it's just like, go around and figure it out, and like it works. And I think that's the problem with Pep, is that it's every player needs to study this giant binder every single game, and the binder changes from game to game, because it's like, okay, this game I'm not playing a holding midfielder, right? It's just like, okay, well, now we have to learn how to play like that.
I couldn't believe, especially considering it was against his Barca team, that we made the same mistake, the 4-2-4, which was definitely at the time like, oh my god, Berbatov, Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo, we're gonna murk these lot. But then shit, midfield 3-on-2, they just schooled us. The fact that he made the same mistake in a Champions League final just blew my mind. When I saw the starting line, I thought he can't be that confident that he's not playing us. He's gonna play four attackers. Yeah, obviously Chelsea's defense, but that pivot, especially Fernandinho at that time. Rodri's now the best at it by all means,
Yeah.
but Fernandinho was so perfect at it. Just played it simple. Rodri's a bit more mobile, gets more goals, but that Fernandinho Makaleli role of just sitting in front, just tidying it up. We might not score on this attack, but we're definitely not conceding on the counter. It
I
was just
I sincerely believe. I mean, like, I don't want to make this a definitive statement yet, so I'm just put like a 70% statement. Like, I really think the holding midfielder might be the most important position in football. Like, but by the way, you especially saw this with Manchester United 2 years ago when you got Casemiro, and the entire team changed. And it's like, I mean, since then it's fallen apart again. But it's like just because people underrate the importance of the holding midfielder in terms of attack. And I'm not even
yes.
talking about in terms of him creating, because that's obviously important. But like when you are not spending the entire game stressed about defense, you're able to attack. You're able,
The freedom,
you
the
got
freedom
freedom.
and the trust. Yeah.
You
All the
know
modern
that
tactics
he's
now,
gonna clear it up.
yeah, all the modern tactics now have your wing backs playing as wingers, your centre backs almost become full backs, and your CDM plays a third centre back. And then that's where the ball distribution, the issues of obviously nowadays you have people like John Stones, and this is where Guardiola's tactics are actually beneficial. When he last season, halfway through, when he started playing John Stones and making that midfield square, you're thinking,
Yeah,
what the hell? The defender playing, because obviously Liverpool did it with Trent coming in a little bit, and but Trent's crazy creative, it makes sense. I didn't realize John Stones could play the ball like that. Like he
yeah,
was playing at number 10 against United this season and whooping us. Like, so in that sense, the mad scientist tactics are brilliant. He's revolutionizing the way people play. It's just messed up that everyone thinks that's the only way to play now. Like I'm seeing Sunday league teams when I walk my dogs, I'm seeing people play this, and I'm like, okay, great if it works, but there is more than one way. You can have multiple formations throughout the game. You don't have to. If your goalkeeper can't play from the back, don't force it. You know what I mean? Rose edge, screw it. We don't want to concede. It's almost watching teams saying, we are going to play this way, even if it's to our detriment. If your goalkeeper can't play with their feet, unlike Pep, where you can go and buy another keeper for 30, 40 odd, because he bought Claudio Bravo in his first season, unmitigated disaster. It was terrible. Goes and spends another 50 million, buys Edison. Brilliant.
yeah.
Most people can't do that. You know, Sunday league teams, Premier League teams can't do that. So if your keeper cannot play the ball, he's not that kind of guy, don't force it. If your
You have
centre
to
backs
say,
can't play, don't force it.
one difference with Trent though, because like this really started to happen this season, is that like the big thing with Trent as a Liverpool fan that all Liverpool fans talk about is that Trent is a defensive midfielder. Even a Mazzala playing right back for some stupid reason that no one is just Klopp's stubbornness. And this season, Trent has just been like, no, I'm playing in the middle. So I'm not doing this bullshit.
Throughout the youth teams, he's been at under 21s, under 23s level. He was a midfielder by trade, and his free kicks and everything. He could. I never thought I'd see the day a game was controlled from right back. It's
Yeah.
almost insane to watch. I would love to put like a camera on him in one of these games and just watch how he sees the pitch and
Oh, he's a
the pop.
genius.
Unbelievable.
I think he should just play attacking midfielder. Like just turn him into Kevin De Bruyne at 2.0. Like,
I think for him, I mean, he could. Don't get me wrong, but just again, selfishly as a fan, watching a right back do that is just fucking brilliant. I love. I mean, I can't enjoy it at Liverpool obviously because I
yeah,
fucking hate Liverpool. But my biggest pet peeve with Southgate is obviously, as I mentioned before, not playing our best lineup. Like Kyle Walker, solid, brilliant, unbelievable. But you know, if you're playing against a smaller team, with all due respect, a smaller country in these Euros, I would like to see. Oh, Serbia will be a tough game, and that'll be our first game. Go and do the right thing, win. With two games, if we won our first two games in the group, man, play Trent in that right back, play him somewhere there, and I want to watch how he just. I want to see some magic. I want to see some magic at the Euros.
by
So
the
I
way,
would
like
love to
one of my
control it there.
controversial opinions. I have a lot of um controversial inane opinions in life. And one of my controversial opinions in football is this. It is if you're a manager, take take your squad, right? And rank them from 1 to 10. And that should be your starting lineup. And from there, just figure out a formation, slot them into the positions. But like, you should always have your 10 best players on the pitch. Like
I mean, ideally, yeah.
what
Ideally,
is
yeah.
this thing of like, oh well, we're playing a 4-3-3, so we can't put our better players. It's just like, then don't play a 4-3-3. Play some other position, play some other formation. Just put your best players on the pitch.
The question is, if that 4-2-3 gets the best out of four other players, but not of this one, how do you juggle it then? It's trying to get the most out of the most number of players at the same time, really, and
I
avoiding injuries.
I think that like having the best players on the pitch will get the most out of other players. You know what I mean? Like I mean, it's obviously harder with a national team because you're forced into these players. Like, with a club, you can just like ship people off and stuff. But like, you do make a good point. Like, there are other players who are more suitable to other styles. You do have to figure that out. But I just generally think like, just put your best players on. Like,
I agree. So technically, looking at your argument now, because going back to Pep, and I'm intrigued because I want to hear your opinion on this. Two top strikers in Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez. Here's a question for you. One suits the team better. One is just the outright better player. Who would you play? You see what I'm saying? That's the headache Guardiola almost has, because City style of play, Alvarez is perfect for it. Every
yeah.
run, everything. Haaland, they have to adapt as a team, but he's a 60-goal striker, once in a generation player. What do you
Yeah.
do there?
Alvarez is a like, he is Sergio Aguero. Like, he's like a taller Messi. I mean, obviously, like, he's not as brilliant as Messi, but like, he plays kind of similar way. Like, the thing for me with like Pep Guardiola, I mean, like, this sounds insane, but it's just don't sign Holland. Do you know what I mean? Just say like, look, like,
I
we
think
have the
everyone's
system.
wishing that. I think. I think
Although
everyone's wishing.
I would have to say that like, what kudos I do have to give to Pep is that he did figure out Holland in his system well, because I remember going to that season. I don't know if you had the same feeling, but I did. Like, it was like, this is either going to be an unmitigated disaster or the most proficient team of all time. Because the problem with Man City before then is that you literally, I remember I saw a clip of this where it was just like Man City players just passing to each other in the box for like 45 seconds. No one wanted to take a shot. Like, that was Man City. You have a whole team of creators, but no one could actually shoot. Even De Bruyne has some great goals, but he's not like, like, you never really played De Bruyne as a striker. But yeah, I mean, like, my feeling as Pep would have been not to sign Holland, and I would have been wrong. I would have been incorrect.
And that's where the tactician, the mad genius. How many times do you see someone's a club sign a big, like United club sign a player that you think's going to work out? We either can't figure it out or it just doesn't. So the first few weeks of the season, I remember Liverpool beat City in the Community Shield. Haaland didn't score. Nunes did.
Yeah,
Liverpool City 1-0. I
we
think
were
at
so
Anfield.
excited. We were like,
Nunes.
the dawn of the age of Nunez.
Yeah,
We
because
could not
then
have
there was
been
that
more wrong.
comparison, like, oh, Nunes is great, Haaland is shit, he's done nothing, and then the rest of the season, obviously, everyone knows how that worked out. Trevor,
Yeah.
but he
The
figured
funny
it out.
thing with Pep is he actually had a similar dynamic 15 years ago on Barcelona. Um,
Zlatan.
Zlatan and Messi, but I mean, Messi was the better player and he fit the system more. But Zlatan was just not the player for Pep. He is just completely.
Crazy. You say that. I remember watching he scored in his first 10 games or 9 games that season, league games in a row. It had never been done before, including a nice volley, 1-0 win against Madrid, I remember. And you're
Yeah,
thinking, oh, they won the treble last year. He's bought Zlatan. Holy shit. Like, what is going to happen here?
yeah,
And then, yeah, for some reason, they played Arsenal, I believe, in the Champions League. Zlatan got 2. It was his first goals in England, not his last. And I just don't know what went wrong there. Something happened there. I think that's where the man management, like Zlatan, who says he prefers Mourinho. Zlatan claims he didn't have an issue not being played. It was just a lack of communication, just the radio silence from Pep. And him and Messi are still fine to this day. Some people were saying, oh, maybe there's an issue. Messi wanted to be the main man, didn't like that. They're fine. Zlatan has no issue. Messi has no issue. It was just Pep maybe I don't really
I
know.
do have to say though, like, that's always a
You
red flag for me. Like, from football to politics to real life, whenever someone says, "Oh, my issue wasn't that; it was that you didn't communicate," it's like, no, you just don't want to admit that that was the issue. Like, and by the way, if you're Zlatan, that should be the issue, Because you're like, look, I am a striker. I am a number 9. My job is to sit in the box and get volleys. Like that's what you paid for me. Like why are you not? And like,
So
sorry.
go on. No, go on, go for it, go for it.
Oh no, it's like why would you bring me in if you don't want me to do that? You
So
know?
this is my point. I felt like in that period, because he had Messi, I don't know why, I could be off, but Zlatan, Eto, like he was falling out with a lot of his strikers at that time for some reason. Eto was shipped off after the first year. He didn't want him in that first year. Apparently, the stories are he was trying to sell him, but then Eto scored like a hat trick in 5 minutes in a friendly game. They're like, well, you can't sell him. He's a key
Wait,
part of the team.
wasn't Eto there when they won their first treble?
We
Yeah.
scored in the final against United. We dominated those. Like sound petty. We had them those first 9 minutes. They couldn't lay a glove. We could have scored 3 in those 9 minutes, and then Eto goes and hits it near post underneath Van der Sar. And again, they controlled from there. But
Have you seen take the ball, pass the ball?
yes, it was a hard watch for me because it was difficult to watch. I mean, the City documentary on Amazon as well. I've only watched it now. This is from 2018 when they won 100 points, just
Yeah.
because it was just painful to have it shoved in my face. But it's amazing to watch, like seeing how his
So
brain works. I mean, he takes a lot of his tactics from handball. He used to watch handball as a fan, and the same sort of formations and movements. He's brought that to football,
yeah.
which is what is incredible.
So there's one documentary. It's called 4 Days in October. It's about so basically until 2005, no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in baseball, and the Boston Red Sox did that against the New York Yankees to win their first World Series in 86 years, and break the curse of the Bambino. And I literally, it's an amazingly done documentary. Within the first 10 minutes, I always throw up and I can't finish it. It literally makes me sick. I've tried to watch it like 4 times and I literally
Yankees fan?
vomit and I can't watch it anymore. It makes me
Are you?
so.
Why don't you like the Red Sox? Because they're under the same ownership as Liverpool, FSG. That's why I hate them. I hate the Red Sox because of their association with Liverpool.
Yeah,
But
I
you,
try
yeah.
not to talk about that.
Oh, that's an interesting. That's an interesting. I will have to make a video for this. This is an interesting topic. So
So here's why. When I was choosing my team, I couldn't be City, obviously. I
yeah,
just never felt the Man U vibe. Like I just never felt the vibe of being a Man U fan. I don't know why. Just you know how you see like a fan group is just like I have no problem with them. I'm just not one of them. So I couldn't be Chelsea because my family's Polish and it was run by a Russian. So that's obviously off the table. So for me, it was between Tottenham and Liverpool. And I actually, for the first like couple months, I was like, maybe I might be a Tottenham fan. And then what happened was like the thing that really got me into football was playing FIFA. Like that really taught me football, taught me everything. And I kept on playing career mode, and I kept on inadvertently building the Liverpool squad. Like I would
yeah.
literally like I'd take control of Inter Milan, and then like I would buy Virgil van Dijk, I'd buy Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'd buy Firmino. I was like, okay, well, I obviously love this team because no matter where I am in the world, I try to recreate this team. So I was like, okay, I'm a Liverpool fan. And the fact that they're all by Boston, it's like, it's painful. Trust me. It hurts my soul.
Who's your baseball team? Are you Yankees then, or
I'm Yankees, yeah.
yeah,
Yankees
only
is
by
my first
association?
love
Yeah.
because when I was a kid, so like you have in every sport the legendary teams.
Mhm.
The two greatest baseball teams of all time were the 1920s Yankees and the 1990s Yankees. So the
20s
19
was Babe Ruth. Was
Babe Ruth,
Babe Ruth?
it was called Murderers Row, and the big question is like who's better, the 20s Yankees or the 90s Yankees? And we won 4 World Series in 5 years.
Oh, shit.
So we won 96, 98, 99, 2000. And I this actually makes me more upset than the 3-0 loss to the Red Sox. We
Mhm.
lost in 2001 right after 9/11. It was a 7-game series. We lost in game 7.
That's
It
tough.
was literally a month after 9/11. And everyone was heartbroken because it was like we really needed this win because we just had
It
9/11.
works out like that. That's mad. You know what you're describing? You're describing Man United in the 90s. Well, we were dominant. You should have been a United fan.
I
You
should
picked
have
Liverpool. Basically,
been.
you picked the United of baseball, basically, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because our problem was so the funny thing about the Yankees, and I know people are tuning in to listen about football, so I'm not gonna talk too much about baseball, but like the Yankees have this stigma of buying talent, right? And people say like, oh, people basically say that the Yankees are the Man City of baseball. But the difference between the Yankees is that like we actually our most successful teams were all homegrown. So like in the 90s, we had this group called the Core Four, which is the core, which were all came up with the draft. Like our entire team was built from the draft, from really savvy trades. And then in 2002, we basically opened up the purse strings and we started buying people like Jason Giambi, Alex Rodriguez. And in that next 15-year period, we only won one World Series. So in fact, the Yankees' dominance came from not buying players, even though people think it comes from buying players. Yeah. I really shouldn't be a Man U fan, I guess, because that actually makes a lot more sense.
Just funny hearing that because I assumed, I'm not knowing off the cuff, that you'd be. It's when I hear about baseball, like, I hate the Red Sox. Like, oh, the Yankees. I'm like, only by association because the Red Sox are run by FSG, and I have to hate. LeBron has a stake in Liverpool, so I have to hate the Lakers now. I have to hate the Cavs. Like whoever LeBron plays for, great player, I have to hate him.
Oh,
So
I hate LeBron, which again sucks because I love Liverpool.
it's
So let me tell you how much I hate Boston. If the Boston Red Sox were in the World Series and they were playing against ISIS, I would root for ISIS.
Jesus.
That's how much I hate them.
Homegrown ISIS team as well, not
Oh no,
bought players.
ISIS team.
Homegrown ISIS team.
Yeah.
Do it the right way.
But I do have to say, in my defense, if MLB actually allows ISIS to have a team, like that's not really on me at that point. I'm not the one recruiting it. I'm just saying, like, if that occurred. But yeah, so I think that we should kick the Euros to next week because we're
Oh yeah,
already like an hour.
yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess Pep, like, to tie a bow on that, I think he's a tier 2 coach, because he just takes stuff that other people build for him. He breaks financial rules. I just don't see him as actually like having won anything of merit. That's Jose Marino's point about Pep. What do you think? Do you think he's the greatest manager of all time? Do you think he's top 5?
He's definitely top 5 because he's made big changes. I know he's like he buys his talent, this and that. But then what he does with that talent, and as a obviously I play defense when I play with when I play with the boys for 7-a-side. From a defender's point of view, when he bought Josko Guardiola this summer, and I'm thinking, oh my god, their centre back partnership is going to be, and he's played him left back the whole season. He doesn't look comfortable at left back. They've had injuries in Nathan Aki and all that. But the last couple of games, he's popping up with these great goals. He scored a banger against Madrid. I'm thinking, oh my god, like again, he's proven me wrong. Like he puts these. He's the only person I've seen put square holes in round pegs together, and he still ends up getting a result out of it. I don't understand. So it's a dedicated training regimen. Do I think he's the GOAT or the best of all time? Probably not. And this might be a bit of bias because he's hurt me so many times. If he goes and does it somewhere, like you said, where he doesn't have all the resources, if he goes and wins it with Napoli, like the Italian league with Napoli, I might give it to him then. It doesn't have to be a major league. As long as it's one of the top 5 leagues and he goes and does some bits and bobs somewhere, shit, if he comes to United and helps us,
Yeah.
I'd give it to him. But I
Yeah,
don't think I wouldn't say he's the best. He's on his way. Trophy wise, he'll be that guy. He is that guy, trophy wise and style of play. The reason I put him in the top maybe 3 or 4, top 5 all time is just that his evolution of the game and how he's impacted. When I said earlier about, not everyone has to play a style, the fact he has a style and such a religious fan base to that style tells you the impact he's had.
and you can't understate the impact he's had because literally everybody now plays pep ball, like everybody, and I hate it because I want to watch some defensive football, but everyone plays,
If the City Football Group, and they're very smart, this is me just saying it as an outside looking, if they are as smart as they want to be, they don't need to, when Pep leaves, they don't need to go get De Zerbi or Tuchel or whoever they're trying to get. That Girona manager that's doing really well, they're finishing 3rd this year. Barcelona just pipped them to 2nd. Great football, young, talented team. That whole City Football Group, they're playing Pep ball. All the managers in that hierarchy, you should have like you said, the top 10 of players, they should have a top setup of their list of clubs in their portfolio. Each one should be a feeder to the next. So the Girona manager, give him another year or 2, should replace Pep. There's consistency. There's no disruption. Same with Liverpool when in those 70s and 80s, as I mentioned on one of our other videos, the new manager was always the previous manager's assistant. There was continuity. The players didn't have to worry about shaking things up. And everyone knew when it's a winning machine, don't change too much.
by the
So
way, do you know who benefited from that ideology. Pep Guardiola. He was the Barcelona B coach, and
Exactly. Yeah.
that's why him and Jose hate each other, because Jose left Barcelona, had all these accomplishments, and was just like, okay, well, I should come back and get the coaching job. And they're like, no, we're gonna promote Pep. It's like,
He
did
was
you
this
forgot?
close. No, he was told he was this close. They said we're gonna go for him. Pep did really well with the B team that year, and they were like, well, let's just. It was a left field play. It was Juan Laporta. It was a brave call. People, I remember sitting at my neighbor's house when they announced, like, who the fuck's Pep Guardiola? We were just crowned European champions. Barca ain't gonna do shit.
Yeah,
Famously.
I actually can't believe I forgot his name, man. I'm not even gonna look it up. I'm just gonna take the embarrassment. Who's who was like the head of Barcelona at the time?
Uh,
Not Port, the Ajax player. I can't
Frank
believe
Rijkaard.
what?
Frank Rijkaard. You talking about the manager, the
No,
coach?
no, no, no. I'm talking about like the guy who put Barcelona together.
Oh, Johan Cruyff.
Cruyff. Again, I'm very embarrassed that I forgot Cruyff's name. Like he should be one of the anyway. Like so apparently what happened was the entire board wanted Jose, and then Cruyff came in at the 11th hour and said no, get Pep, and
Yeah, well,
that was the start of the hatred. And by the way, like this is what I hate about Jurgen is that like I think that Pep might have mentally manipulated him a little bit, because Jurgen keeps on saying all these positive things about Pep. And I'm like, and then you watch Liverpool play against Manchester City, and they play kind of listless. Like there's no fire and anger in that club when we're playing Manchester City. And I just, first of all, I want that fire and the anger. And two, I think that Pep might have just played it. He might have
so
complimented the guy,
this,
knew that Jurgen was going to compliment him back. And now Liverpool, it's like, oh, like we're having this friendly match. And it's just like, no, you need to.
I agree. The Ferguson Wenger battles, obviously, it might have spilled over a bit too much in the heyday, but man, there was nothing better than I hated Arsenal, but boy, when those games came around, especially if we won as well, it made your whole month. Like it was perfect. Like it was
Speaking of
you want
which,
that.
De Zerbi to Man U. Do you think it's happening? I remember you texted me about this.
I was I was very shocked that he's leaving. Obviously, he's had a bit of a poor run of form towards the end of the season. We actually beat them in the final day, which was shocking in itself. They should have
Yeah.
whipped us. Um, I think he's going to Italy. I think he's taking the Juve job. Allegri's been dismissed because of his outburst after the Coppa Italia final, which they won as well. I don't understand what he was switching about, but I
Yeah.
think De Zerbi goes to Italy, takes the big job there, and then maybe comes back to, I think he can come back to the Premier League for a top job then, because he's done a great job at Brighton. But Brighton have this incredible knack of knowing when the cycle is coming to an end, because even when they had Graham Potter and he left, you're thinking, oh my god, it's going to fall apart. It's beginning of the season, he's gone to Chelsea. De Zerbi came in and took him to another level. Now they're talking about Kieran McKenna, who's at Ipswich, who was one of the United assistant coaches under Ollie, very highly rated. He might take the Brighton job. I think that'd be I'm sorry, Ipswich fans, if you're watching. I think it'd be perfect for Kieran McKenna. Back-to-back promotions at Ipswich. Obviously, you'd like to see it through with them maybe in the Premier League, but if you get the Brighton job where you get a better budget, a great football structure, young manager, young team, hungry, it's a no-brainer. I'd love to watch Kieran McKenna at Brighton. But yeah, I think De Zerbi is going to Juve, personally.
Yeah. I was really surprised by that firing.
It wasn't a firing. I think it was, they say it was mutual, but I think De
Did he
Zerbi, even
quit?
like halfway through the season, De Zerbi halfway through the season when it was announced that well, Liverpool with the Klopp announcement in January, De Zerbi was one of the first three names I actually heard.
Oh,
Um,
I meant Juve.
oh,
Juve.
Juve.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was surprised
Allegri.
by that.
They always say there's a famous saying in football, never go back. So if you have a great first run, never go back to the club again, whether you're a player or a manager.
Yeah, you should
And
never
I've
do
kind
that.
of seen that. Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if it transcends to other sports like baseball, but in Premier League or at least in football, European football, I hate seeing players or managers go back because they might even be a little bit successful, but they never reach that pinnacle ever again. So
Yeah.
Allegri had a trophy-laden career, 2011, 2012 to like 2014, 15, 17, something like that. A couple Champions League finals, they lost to, better teams in Real Madrid, Barcelona. Great football under Juve, solid team, great stacked squad. This Juve is not that Juve. So when he came
Yeah.
back, I'm thinking, oh, he's going to steady the ship, but they can't expect he will. I don't rate him super highly. I think he's a good coach. I wouldn't personally want him at United. I don't think he's suited to the Premier League. I might be completely wrong. He might go and kill it somewhere, but
I,
he
I,
just
I,
never
I
speak
don't
to
think
him.
it's. I don't think like. I think the problem with Juve is the problem with Serie A is that there's the money's just leaving Serie A right now, and I think it's. I think it's come back, but like Juve. Inter, like they just don't have the financial firepower to compete with La Liga and with the EPL. Like who was the last big Serie A signing? Christopher
Lukaku's had a few,
Pulisic?
Lukaku's had a few mentions, but again, that's one of those he was back and forth. He really came to Chelsea for a year, then kind of went scuttying back, so I don't really count that. You're right. I mean, I can't remember the last time there was like a big mega like holy shit he picked Serie A over another league kind of signing. And the problem with that is again the style of play. Maybe not a lot of fans, not a lot of TV people watching football on TV enjoy Serie A, so the TV
I just
rights
think
aren't.
it's poor. Like, well,
Yeah,
Italy is a poor country. It's just the economy is imploding, and like Germany is a rich country, so they still have the money. The thing with the EPL, and I don't know if like English fans wants to hear this, but the reason why the EPL has been so financially successful in the past 10, 15 years is because of the American market. The American market is growing so substantially, and like you see the EPL, like their revenue is coming from television, right?
mm,
And so every American fan is going to watch the EPL because they speak English. Like it's just the same thing, right? I actually have a friend who like last year, he decided to become a Liverpool fan, but he was going to soccer, and like we're talking about like what team he should support, and I mentioned Barcelona, and he was like, "No, sorry, they speak Spanish. It's not happening."
really,
Because
that much of it.
every American is going to choose an English team, right? And with Spain is a poor country too, but they have the entire South America as fan bases. Like I walk around Brazil, I walk around Colombia, they're watching La Liga games, right? So you have that, and Italy just doesn't have any money, and so I
I
think
think
it's the zag, but for the time being, it's just
so. Definitely, yeah, definitely the economic situation. Again, that leaks into then the TV rights, how much each club gets from the television revenue, which isn't as large as Premier League and La Liga, as you mentioned. And thirdly, which you've just touched on now, especially with South America and the Spanish teams, the demographic of the players that are going to Serie A, are they attracting a global audience as much as Premier League, La Liga, even Bundesliga to a degree? And then that goes back to popularity of the league, where the players think they're going to have the most shine and the most success, where the managers are as well. Like the Premier League, the last couple of years has been a collection of the best managers. So I think it's different factors. Um,
Also, all their stars are Eastern Europeans, and I can tell you, as an Eastern European, no one wants to watch us play sports. Sergey Mitrovic Savic, like these are not names that kids want to chant.
think it'll be difficult for some as well. They'll have to shorten it a little bit. But so yeah, I mean, I think Syria. I think what's really helped is the performance in the Champions League, Inter getting to a final, doing not too bad this year as well. I think they lost out to Atletico, I believe, on the penalties. So Juve coming back up. But I think Allegri, for me, going back to that point, Allegri was, and this doesn't help in his second stint, had a very stacked squad in that first Juve run. So it made him maybe look better than he was.
Yeah,
Now having maybe the strongest Juve team and his team kind of faltering, not really. But they were going to keep him. Apparently, he had an outburst where he kicked off in the tunnel with some opposition manager, player, and some ref or something. And it's not coming of Juve behavior. I think it's a bit of a cop out, and they wanted to get rid of him, and they're using this as an excuse, even though he
plus they're
won
Italian. Like what are you talking about? Not
Italian FA Cup. Italian FA Cup, he won it, but it wasn't enough to save him. I think De Zerbi going to Juve, revamping the style. They're used to playing three at the back and then defending with a five. I think he does. I think if they give him the good summer and he gets the right players in, De Zerbi's Juve, if he does go there, I think he's going to end up there. I think De Zerbi's Juve could be really exciting, especially in Europe in the next couple of years.
one last question because we're coming up on an hour and a half, and it's nice because we always have to like get to a point where like okay, we're gonna cut off just so that we still have material because we could go on for like hours. I feel, but like Xavi, like
It actually true then in the end. I haven't checked the rumors. Did they actually sack him in the end?
yeah.
Holy
So
shit.
so for people who don't know, so um, it's Xavi, right? That's how you pronounce it, right? Because yeah, so Xavi, was legendary midfielder at Barcelona. Barcelona's midfield. People argue like which midfield was the best. Was it Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, or was it Cruz, Modric, and Casemiro? It's an eternal argument, but he club legend, became the manager, won La Liga last year, did great, and then this year inexplicably, like 2 months in, said he's quitting. And
Fair
it's
enough.
just like, that's you literally just won La Liga. You have Robert Lewandowski, which I know he's old, but he's kind of like the third, like him and Neymar are kind of the third of
Size.
the Messi Ronaldo. You have Messi Ronaldo, and then you have Lewandowski and Neymar as clear third and fourth. Which, by the way, if you're a club, having one of the like the third best striker is good, right? And then not only that, they have all this young talent. They have Gavi. They have like just a ton of I think they had like three straight players this year score in their first game under
Yeah.
18. And then he decided to quit. And then 2 months ago he said, "Okay, I'm staying." And now Barcelona are firing him.
I
So my
don't know.
question is like, what the fuck?
So apparently, him and Laporte had a big falling out after the Rayo Vallecano match this weekend. He criticized Xavi apparently criticized their own fans. I have no idea what's going on. Selfishly, as a team that lost to Pep Guardiola's Barca, I love it. Screw Barca, I hate them.
Yeah.
We should have had Champions League if it wasn't for them. Um, it just seems like mismanagement again. From they have a winning formula. They've won La Liga. Obviously, Real Madrid come back, bought Bellingham. They look stacked. They look crazy. I understand the pressures. These modern managers aren't built. Even Guardiola and Klopp, lot, as much as they're incredible. I'm talking about managers from like Wenger, Ferguson, Brian Clough, them days, the old school managers that could last 10, 15, 20 years under those pressure positions. When the clubs gave them more time as well, social media doesn't help with these fans just giving that outside noise, berating the managers. I don't think they read it or they look at it, but just the fact it's there, it weighs
Well,
on their
like
mind.
even if they don't read it, like their PR people tell them about it, like they
People
still
know,
hear
if you're
them.
aware of it, that there's even the fact that there is this platform where people can throw this vitriol at you, it will have some sort of impact.
Yeah.
So I think Xavi was a bit premature. It might have even been a tactic. Some of these guys, he might have wanted, certain changes made in the club in terms of structure and things. So just, kind of played his bluff and said, screw it, I'm out. And they're like, shit, who do we get? So let's results actually upturned quite nicely after he announced he was leaving. They went on a crazy streak, did really well. Very unlucky against PSG in that Champions League. They were in control up until the sending off. He may have overplayed his hand now. Coming back, the changes might have happened, or he might be pushing a little bit too much. There's only so much I've learned in my life, and I'm sure everyone else knows. When you're working a certain job and with the employees, if you're not getting what you want, you can only push certain before they can always pull the trigger. So, um, I think personally he may have just overplayed his hand. They're like, well, we're not winning much anyway. Enough is enough. Who goes there now? I think they might take Ruben Amorim from Sporting. He was meant to come to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Sporting did something very cheeky. I'll wrap it up quick because I know we're coming to that hour and a half. A 10 million compensation package was agreed, 10 million euros. At the 11th hour, Sporting doubled it to 20, and Liverpool, as Liverpool do, which I actually respect, they walked away. We're not being, we're no mugs, we're not being ripped off here.
I
And
love
then you
that
guys
about
went,
Liverpool.
yeah,
Like
they just the guns.
that is the secret thing that made me want to be a Liverpool fan, even though they're owned by Boston Sports Group, is that as a New York fan, we always overpay stupidly. And it's always the Boston Sports Group that's like, we're not doing that. This is the price. We're not paying a penny more. And like Liverpool has been very smart about that. I'm very happy that they just don't. They're like, sorry, you're not worth it.
Amarim is probably still available. Will Barca afford that 20 million? If it is still 20 million euros, they might obviously knock it down a bit now.
Yeah.
Apparently, Vincent Company is available after Burnley got relegated. Bayern Munich apparently came out today. I'm looking at him, which would be a strange one for me. I thought De Zerbi might go to Bayern, to be honest, but I think it's too much of a left field. Tuchel was in talks to stay. He's now not staying. Apparently, he's confirmed. I could see a merry-go-round where if we do sack Ten Hag, which I hope we don't, he goes to Bayern because he managed Bayern B when Pep was there.
Yeah.
He has admirers at Bayern Munich. Tuchel comes to United. Amarim goes to Barca. De Zerbi's at Juve.
I actually think that Tuchel would be terrible for Man United, and the reason is because like Tuchel is the anti-Pep. He is a knockout coach.
Yeah,
Like what he won two Champions Leagues within 3 years or something. Like the guy just
finals. Yeah, he was in a couple of finals.
like
Yeah.
he just like performs, and it's like you guys aren't in the Champions League, so like there's no point in getting Tuchel unless you're in the Champions League, in my opinion.
I mean, they were Chelsea were third. They were sitting pretty under him when they sacked him stupidly. I think I would if we were going to sack Ten Hag, which I hope we don't. Tuchel would be the one I want because I like his style of play. I like how he's very cerebral with his tactics as well. he needs the right football structure, and he's not afraid to have a pop at the owners. He usually falls out with his board at the clubs he's at.
Yeah. Have
So
you guys had
this is too
Antonio
short.
Conte yet?
No, Conte is the one I would take Tuchel, not Conte, which sounds because they're both kind of similar. I feel like Antonio Conte, a bit like Mourinho, has been found out. Tuchel can still adapt with his tactics. Conte's tactics kind of get found out after the first 6 months, and he implodes everywhere he goes. He's a fiery guy. We're not going to give him the kind of money he wants. Under this Ineos group, I think Tuchel will work cleverly with him, and we won't be world beaters, but in a year or two, in 18 months, 2 years, we'll be there. We'll be in and around, like kind of like Arsenal are, and that's all you can really ask for. As much as I want us to win the title straight away, we have to be realistic. But going back to someone I was going to mention now,
You,
Poch. Poch should not. They're talking about Poch not staying at Chelsea. That'll be the dumbest thing they've ever done. They're finally winning games. They finished sixth. He's getting the players on side. It would be the most Todd Bowley thing to do if he sacked Poch in the summer. Now
and
I'd
Cole
laugh.
Palmer, like a lot of how I consume soccer is like half of my Instagram is soccer reels. Like and like I'd say about 50% of them for the past few weeks have been Cole Palmer. Like he's
I think it was Newcastle or someone. He scored that looping header into the far post. Oh, he has to be in. If they're talking about Kobe Mainu in the England team, this guy has to start. They have to have him. I was going to put Jack Grealish in on the left, but I'd actually play Cole Palmer in that squad, in that starting 11 over Grealish, and then have the Saka, Kane, Bellingham, have that front five just blow teams out.
Yeah, I think Chelsea are a perfect team for Pac, especially because they're kind of the anti PSG. Like the problem with PSG for Pac was that like I read all these reports again, like going back to like Mbappe and Neymar, where he would just tell people like press, and they would be like, no, we're not doing that. It's not, and like he just had no control over there. And like in Chelsea, because like them getting humiliated is actually kind of nice because now they're like, okay, we're rebuilding from the bottom. And with Pac there, like I think he's a capable coach and he can coach them well. I actually really wanted to see Antonio Conte at PSG just because I was like, it's either going to, I'm talking about like 2 years back. And I was like, this is either going to be the greatest team of all time or it's going to implode with 2 weeks. Those are the
Yeah,
two options with Antonio Conte.
With Poch at Chelsea, if they do sack him, who do they bring in? Who's left? They've rinsed Tuchel, they've rinsed Conte. There's literally no one left for them to. So Poch has to stay there. They have to give him time. Conte's been out of work for a while as well. I don't know how high his stock is. Like I think he should go into. I think he should manage Italy again if he gets the chance. Go back into international management. It might be more his pace.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. It's very interesting. The way this managerial stuff's going to go. We'll see how the FA Cup final goes next week. Hopefully, we get a result.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, and we'll get deep into the Euros. I've got a lot to say about the Euros. Let's see how. I'm curious to see what team he puts out, what squad he puts together. Germany playing three keepers is insane. Or I think he picked 3 or 4 keepers or something. Yeah, he picked 4 keepers. He's got 4 keepers in his squad.
And they
Matt
also kept
Hummels.
out a lot of Bayern players as well. Like we were talking about this. It was the first time that they had like less than like six. Because
Lewis Yeah, Luis Enrique did something similar at Spain, where because he was sacked by Barcelona pretty recently before taking the Spain job, they hold
yeah,
on to this. I don't know if it's personal, but it's too obvious. It looks a little bit obvious where they're not picking players. Nagelsmann got burned by Bayern, and now he's not picking Bayern players or players that played under him at Bayern. It's a little bit. You got to let it go. You want to win the Euros or not? You got to pick your best.
and Spain for the longest time was literally just half Barcelona, half Real
Yeah,
Madrid. So that's literally the team. And
Spain, Spain
um,
captain. Go back to the Franco days. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
Always a Real Madrid player. A lot of people didn't notice it. The Spain captain would always be a Real Madrid player for the majority of the time, up until
yeah,
recently.
until recently, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that next week, I think what we should do is just like go country by country for the Euros. We'll start with England. That'll be a good 2 hours. And then we'll do France, Spain, Italy, Germany. If Jude
Poland, have to do
Bellingham,
Poland as well. You have to give a special
Poland as
shout out to
well,
Poland.
yeah. I mean, like, look, like Poland is always frisky. Like we almost qualified over Argentina during the World Cup. People don't know this. It was literally the last 20 minutes of qualifying, and like we were in the group with Mexico and Argentina. Like, what do you expect from us? Like, we have Lewandowski, we have Zelensky, we have a good team. Also, What's his name? Wojciech Szczesny.
Yeah,
Do you know what Wojciech means in Polish?
no clue.
Man who loves war.
There we go. All right, let's see.
All right, well,
Character. He's a character. He's definitely one of those.
we'll do an entire Euros rundown next week. By the way, I do think, for the people who are still listening after an hour and a half, I think that like in a few weeks, if we keep this momentum going and we keep feeling it the way we do, maybe we start doing a live stream ever so often.
No, yeah.
That way people can log on, they can have comments, we can ignore them.
Take questions. I'm always happy to take questions. Let's see what they come up with.
Rapid fire. Though the problem with the live stream is it would go from an hour and a half to like 7 hours very quickly. Paul, what do you think about the 1986 Argentina team? Let me talk to you about it. All right, dude.
Nah, all right, man.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
let
gonna
you go.
stop recording.